G'day guys, it's Adam from VideoShowMeHow, and in this video we're going to run through a bunch of different ways, five different ways of how to join two wires together. Before we do, a big welcome back to the subscribers of the channel. I hope you're having a legendary day. If you're new here and you find this video helpful, consider supporting the channel by subscribing, leaving some comments below, and checking out some of the other videos. So let's get started. There's a bunch of different ways that you can join two wires together. Some are more dodgy than others, and others are fully solid waterproof connections that you could use for even marine application. So we're going to run through 5 of my favorite ways, from my least favorite all the way through to my preferred method. There's probably more versions out there, but this is probably 5 of the most common versions that you're going to find out there, and it's sort of an all-in guide for you to follow along. The first way I'm going to show you is definitely my least favorite, and it's definitely not something that you would want to use for a permanent application. It is definitely doable though if you're in a pinch and you need to get a quick fix underway or what have you. This will definitely work, but like I said, there's better versions out there. Now, how to do this one, effectively what you're going to be doing is splicing the 2 bits of wire together and then insulating it with your electrical tape. Now, if you don't have a decent set of wire strippers, I would definitely recommend going and getting a pair. This sort of style is pretty good, mainly because you have a wire cutter, you have your crimpers in here as well. It has a great wire stripper at the top here that's adjustable through the little thread here like this. And then what it does is it grips the wire in here, grips it, and then pulls the end off. So we're going to cut some of this to get our threads here. So say we want a nice section there. It grips down on the wire and then pulls the end, and there you go. So for this method, using the 2 pieces of wire, you want to cut off some insulation off both ends so there's a good amount of wire exposed on both ends. Then effectively what you're going to want to do is twist these 2 pairs together. So you cross them over just like this, pop them right down to the base like that, so you've got maximum amount of copper exposed, and then all you want to do is keep them at a right angle like that, and then twist the 2 copper pieces together like so until they are forming one connection just like this. Now from there, it's just a matter of folding this guy over so that it's tight. Now if you left it like that, obviously that's no good because we need to insulate this. By taping over this, what it's also doing is taping that to that piece of insulation so that it won't pull apart. So once you've done that, grab your tape, start down one end of the wire just like this, and then it's just a matter of taping it up. When you get to the actual copper piece here, make sure that it's nice and flat against the wire itself, and you want to go straight over it, keeping it nice and tight. And it's as simple as that. Now that's not going to go anywhere, it won't pull apart. I know people that use this method for everything and they haven't sort of come a cropper as yet. However, there are much better ways. The problem with this method is, while it's a nice tight connection, you're effectively relying on the electrical tape to keep that together. If that electrical tape wasn't there and there was any pressure on the wire itself, it would pull apart. The problem with electrical tape is when it's in, hot applications and, places that are quite warm and what have you, aka engine bays or exteriors of cars and all of the above, it kind of gets a little bit hot and then it kind of stops sticking and then it kind of comes off, and then you've got exposed wires with power touching things that it shouldn't. So, like I said, it will work in a pinch, but not recommended. So the second way that you can join wires together is using some cable joiners. Now these are available pretty well anywhere, service stations, automotive shops, even hardware stores. They are a really simple little thing, and effectively all it is you are crimping the 2 wires together. So we have a little bit of insulation happening here. On the inside there's some metal tube there, and what happens is you force the wire in both sides and then crimp it down. With this you will need a crimper. if you have a tool like this, you can see there's the different colors. They are pretty universal. We have your red, your blue, and your yellow. And what that represents is the size of the wire itself. So your red is typically 2.5mm to 3mm. 4 is for 4, blue is for 4mm, and yellow 5mm. So that's sort of the standard sizes there. So like I said, how this one works is you want to have your 2 pieces of wire here like this. From there, you want to start with one end and twist him around like so. Force him in one side. Get your second bit of wire, and in she goes as well. You want to find that center column. Press them both in there and jam them together until they're in there like that. And then from there, you want to get your crimping tool and crimp on both ends on the metal component, not the shoulder, on the metal in the middle. Just like that. So you can see it will give you the crimps in the middle, and you can see they're squished down. What that's doing is effectively just squishing the copper of the wire together and forming a connection that way. These are quite tight. The only problem I've found with these is if you don't crimp this correctly, sometimes these can pull out, and they're not really designed to be under a lot of load, and I would only really use these in a temporary scenario as well. The main reason for that is they're not waterproof either. You could put electrical tape around the end to add some extra rigidity as well as waterproofing the connection. Another thing you could do is get some heat shrink itself. You can get kits like this, they're relatively inexpensive, and what you could do is basically just get some heat shrink that you would have sitting on the cable before you joined it. Obviously it's easy here in this application because we've got a cut, but you're going to have a wire going that way and a wire going that way. So if you do want to heat shrink it, remember to put that on first. I'm speaking from way too much experience there. All right, so on to method 3. This one's kind of similar to the last one in the fact that you are crimping and using heat shrink. But the best thing about this is it's all in one. You can find these online for not very much. As you can see here, just jump on Amazon or eBay. And the best thing is you can get a whole bunch of these for not much, and they're gonna last you ages. How these basically work is they have some shrink tube already wrapped around the center metal piece. So similar to the last version that we just looked at, there is that central tube of metal where you join the connections and squish the copper together. The best thing is it's got heat shrink built in. So pretty simple and pretty quick. These are one of my favorites. So how they work is you want to have your 2 bits of wire like we have here. So you want to put the first one in, give it a bit of a twist, just like so. Second piece of wire that's going to be running off this side. Same sort of deal. Give him a bit of a twist. Pop him in there and just jam him in there. Stop once you get to the, you may not be able to see in there, but stop once you get the insulation of the wire to the shoulder here. Same on that side. Once you're there, you're good to go. Similar to the last method, you then want to crimp on both ends of the actual metal itself. Just like that. You can see that's nice and tight and solid connection. You can see how it really does squish down on the wires itself, and that's effectively how you're getting your connection. From there, you're just going to need a little handheld flame torch. You could use a lighter, and then it's just a matter of shrinking your heat shrink. And there we go. We have a nice waterproof connection, and it is also a nice solid connection there in the middle. So method 4, and that is soldering. Now, you've probably heard of soldering wired together before. There's lots of people out there that probably say that this is the best way to go, and I agree to some extent. The upsides with soldering is you are effectively fusing your 2 wires together because you're using solder, which is highly conductive, and by welding that onto your wires, you're getting a very good electrical connection. The downside, in my view, of soldering is you need a bunch of kit. You need to find your solder, which always, for me, manages to get to the very bottom of my general box of knickknacks. So you got to find that. That's at least 3/4 of an hour. Then you need a actual soldering iron. Not too big a deal. This is my old Warhouse. It's been around the block once or 100 times. And it's a bit more fiddly. So you sort of need to have something to hold your wire together. You can see those little clampy helper handy thingies that you can buy online. To be honest, I just use a pair of clamps that does the same thing. But there's a bit more mucking around. Once it's soldered together as well, if you need the thing to be waterproof, you then have to take the extra step of either using some heat shrink, like we just did before, and heat shrinking over the top. You could use tape, etc., etc. There are better ways again, and maybe, just maybe, it's coming up soon, but this is how you solder. So obviously you're going to need some kit. You're going to need a soldering iron. You are going to need some power as well to power the soldering iron, although you do get those funky battery ones these days, so depending on your flavor and how much you're going to be using it. Then you're obviously going to need some solder as well. You're going to need some way of holding the wires together, and that's about it. So how to do it is you need to get your 2 pieces of wire. This time we don't really want to twist them too much together, because what you're going to do is you're kind of going to jam both ends after you've stripped them, of course. You're going to basically jam the 2 ends in together. What you're going to do is just kind of squish them in together until their wires are sort of the strands of the copper interlace, just like that. Once you have, just sort of squish them down a little bit, and then from there you just want to get it laid out so it's good to go. From here, what you're going to want to do with the soldering iron itself is to heat the wire itself, not the solder. So you want to get a little bit of solder onto the iron, then you want to pop that underneath your wire itself, heat up the wire. You're going to give it a sec, and then as that's heating up, you'll know it's hot enough when you can start seeing some smoke, and you want to touch then the solder to the wire, and it's going to start melting. There we go. See how it starts melting there? And then what you're doing is effectively melting the solder, which will go through the strands itself, but you just want a good amount that goes through the actual wire itself until you've got a nice solid connection. I've also soldered the table, but never mind. Once you're good to go there, let it cool. It will be quite hot because remember, you've heated up the wire itself. And then what we've got is a actual soldered wire itself. You can see there that the solder has penetrated the wire and you have a nice solid connection that's not going to get pulled apart at all. From there, it's a matter of then heat shrinking this. You could use some electrical tape if you really wanted to, but heat shrink is the way to go. And that brings us to the 5th version, and this one is definitely my favorite, and in my opinion, I reckon it's the best way to go as well. You can buy a kit of these solder connections online. They are super easy to come by. Just jump on Amazon or eBay, like you can see here. A box of these guys is not very expensive at all, and I recommend getting a big box. This has lasted me ages. I'll probably do a bit of an upgrade because I'm running out there, but they're easy to get. I'd recommend getting some. What they are is they're kind of the best of both worlds. This little center section here, the silver part, that's solder, and then you have the whole thing wrapped in shrink tube. So what this does is, instead of being all finicky and mucking around with soldering irons and all the above, all you need is your little blowtorch here, and what that's going to do is this melts, the solder melts over the wires to create that really great electrical connection using the solder fusing it together, and at the same time it shrinks over the top to give you that waterproof connection. These are honestly the best thing since sliced wire bread. So to use them, you first need to get the right size. These are also color coded, just like your wire strippers. You get your 2 bits of wire, and then it really is as simple as you want to get the 2 pieces of copper to join in the middle where the actual solder part of the joiner is. So you just want to pop him in there like that. You want to stop where the shoulder of the insulation of the wire itself, you want to stop at about that blue line there on both sides. That's going to grip those shoulders there once you hit it with the heat gun. Once you have it, just like that, you can see that both pieces of copper from both wires are connected in the middle. The only thing left to do is join the thing together. So you want to get your heat source, in this case our little blowtorch, and then it's a matter of hitting the solder component there first. Once that starts melting, give it a zig and a zag, and that's done. Once you finish giving it a zap with your heat source, give it a little sec or two because it will be quite hot. So let it cool down and then you're good to go. It's as simple as that. So as you can see, we have the center part the solder has soldered it all together. We have a crazy strong connection. I'm pulling on that pretty hard. And best of both worlds, we've got the heat shrink kind of built in. So you can see that's a nice solid waterproof connection. So there you go guys, 5 different ways that you can join your wires together. From get you out of trouble on the side of the road and you need to be able to get home type version, non-permanent electrical tape version, right through to the fully soldered, fully waterproof connection here as well. That's going to be your best bet. Let me know in the comments below which version that you think you would use the most, or maybe there's a version that isn't covered here that you think is better. Open to discussion, of course. Keen to see what you think. I hope you found this video helpful as always. If you are new to the channel and you're keen to show your support, easiest way you can do that is hit the subscribe button. That way you are subscribed to the channel and you'll get notified as soon as new videos come out. I hope you guys have an amazing day and I will see you in the next one. See ya.